46 days to go before the election, Joe Biden took the stage last night for a CNN town hall near his childhood home outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he talked about everything from Trump's pandemic response to white privilege in America. Take a look.
All the way back in March, I was calling for the need for us to have masks, have the president stand and tell us what's going on. But he knew it. He knew it and did nothing. It's close to criminal.
To those
Zero.
who say it's individual liberty not to wear a mask.
I would tell you what takes away your freedom. What takes away your freedom is not being able to see your kid, not being able to go to the football game or baseball game, not being able to see your mom or dad sick in the hospital.
Do you see ways that you've benefited from white privilege?
Sure, I've benefited just because I don't have to go through what my black brothers and sisters have had to go through. I'm running as a Democrat, but I'm going to be everyone's president. I'm not going to be a Democratic president. I'm going to be America's president.
So a lot of people were anxious about how he performed last night. You know, what'd you think, Sarah? I happen to think, before I even throw it to you, I thought he was great. I thought he was sane and knowledgeable and to the point. How did you think he did, Sarah?
I think, Joy, that he did a really great job as well, and primarily because of the stark contrast in style from what we saw with President Trump at his town hall. We saw what I have always looked to represented officials to do, which is to connect with their voters. You could see his empathy and his compassion and his humanity as people were asking questions and often presenting some pretty difficult stories. And I loved how he answered each one so personally, and I felt that response. But the two things that jumped out at me were, I really liked when he called Anderson Cooper out for CNN saying that he'd be the first president without an Ivy League education. That spoke to me because I think it reminds you that everyone walks around with a little imposter syndrome. Here's someone running for president of the United States, and that kind of got him in the gut. I also liked kind of the working man. You know, he was the first person from his family to go to college. This is the American dream right in front of you. He worked hard. He was among people that he would have grown up. He grew up in that town. Like, I just loved that old school politician. But I also loved that there was some nuance in his answers. One thing I've always said is I'm going to trust someone that can sometimes veer off their political ideology to tell me the truth. And there was a teacher who had MS and was talking about being back in the schools. And he said, will there be a time, because I'm immunocompromised, where I can be back in the school? And Joe Biden immediately said, you know, this is going to be a tough decision for you to make, because even when we have the vaccine, there's going to be different levels of it, and I want to make sure you're safe. And the easier answer would have been to, yeah, we'll have a vaccine, it'll be great, we'll make everyone take it, it'll be awesome. And like, he just didn't do that. And to me, that wins my trust.
Okay. All right. So, Megan, what did you think?
Look, I think there were a lot of low expectations for this, given that the Trump campaign is putting out this narrative that Biden has been in the basement. He cannot go out and interact with voters in the way that he once did. And I think last night I was also pleasantly surprised. I thought he did fantastic. He definitely has the empathy that Sarah just completely gave a rundown about. He was great interacting with voters. He's great when he's talking about pain. He's great when he's talking about the coronavirus. Really hit it out of the park. What's interesting is I was actually angry at his campaign last night, because he's more than capable of doing this. And I know we're living in COVID land, but figure it out. Figure it out to show this man in the strengths that he shows best, which he did last night. And I think the problem going forward for President Trump and his team is that they are putting all of their eggs in the basket of the debates. And I'm one of these people that's been very skeptical about how he's going to perform. If he does even half of what he did last night, then there's really no question about his capability of debating Trump. That being said, Politico's headline this morning was that it was a softball town hall. And at a certain point, I still have serious questions for both President Trump and Joe Biden that I would like answered, that are going to have to come out and hard-hitting. And I beg the debate moderators to do justice to the American public and actually ask some hard-hitting questions, because last night was not it.
Okay. Okay. Anna.
Well, look, I think the questions were asked by voters themselves. To me, that's always one of my favorite formats, town halls. I love because of that, because it's unfiltered questions by voters. Some of them last night were Trump voters. I love the fact that he stood up there, answered questions powerfully, forcefully, made very poignant points for an hour and a half. The Trump campaign is putting out this false narrative that he's some sort of, feeble old man about to keel over at any moment, who's going to be manipulated and influenced by all of these evil people around him. Last night, he showed he's in command. He's forceful, he's got vitality, and he can do this. So I can't wait for those debates. What spoke to me was, one of his last answers where he talked about being a precedent for all Americans. Look, I think many of us feel that Donald Trump has been the president for his base and only his base, and has treated practically every other American as second-class citizens. So hearing from Joe Biden that he's going to hear Republicans and see Republicans and represent Republicans and represent all Americans, whether you are a progressive Democrat or whether you are a disenfranchised Republican, that felt like aloe on my burnt skin.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that he'll do very well in the debates because he seems to know the information. Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. So when they ask him a question, of course, if you always do better when you know the answers, right? But I still think they need a fact checker at those debates.